So here we go again. It all comes down to this. Slowly but surely we will find out which African sides will play at FIFA World Cup 2026. We're going to be covering all those African World Cup qualifiers on this channel because the mainstream media doesn't do it. So if you're excited about these qualifiers, drop a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already, as we look ahead to match days 5 and 6 of the CAF World Cup qualifiers. And this is crucial now. This is going to go past the halfway stage. There's very little room for error. So it's going to be very interesting to see how teams approach this. Of course, some nations now haven't made the AFCON, which is going to put even more pressure on them making the World Cup. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through group by group. It's going to change on the screen when we're talking about each group and seeing what the current situation is, because of course it's been a while before these games took place, and what match days 5 and 6 are looking like coming up. But just before we do that, a quick reminder of how the World Cup qualifying works now for Africa. So usually, in recent years, we would have 5 nations get sent to the tournament. So 5 teams from Africa would make the World Cup. That's been increased to at least 9 and maybe even 10. We've got 9 groups taking place here. All 9 group winners will advance to the World Cup directly. The 4 best second place teams have got a nightmare journey to make the tournament. It's not over for them, but the best 4 runners-up will play each other in 2 semi-finals and then a final, and then they'll play an inter-confederation playoff against someone from another country to determine whether or not there'll be 10 teams from Africa or just the 9. So pretty much, if you want it to be straightforward, you've got to win your group. There's some interesting groups, there's some usual suspects. Let's take a look and start off with Group A, where Egypt are very much in the driving seat. They're on 10 points out of a possible 12. Guinea-Bissau on 6. Burkina Faso, a team that always seems to give Algeria trouble. You'd think they'd do more in this, but 5 points from 4 games is not a good return. Even Sierra Leone on 5 points. Ethiopia on 3. And Djibouti, perhaps impressively, on 1. So Burkina Faso at home to Djibouti. You'd expect them to smash them. But this could be an interesting game between Ethiopia and Egypt, because do you remember recently in the AFCON qualifiers last time out, Ethiopia actually won at home to Egypt, but this Egypt seems a lot better, and if Egypt are as well home to Sierra Leone in match day 6 and Burkina Faso have to go to Guinea-Bissau in match day 6, you'd think it's going to be a bit of a miracle needed to catch Egypt when they've got a 4-point cushion with 6 games to go. You'd think Egypt are pretty much there or thereabouts, and it's hard to see Burkina Faso, or of course Guinea-Bissau, not what they once were after getting those 3 AFCONs in a row. They've not even qualified for the AFCON this year. So I think Egypt are going to be very, very comfortable in Group A. Let's move on to Group B, where it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting because you've got Sudan leading the way on 10 points, Senegal and DR Congo and even Togo chasing the pack, South Sudan and even Mauritania, which just makes the Mauritania-Algeria result look even worse when you look at how Mauritania are performing in Group B. But this is really interesting. You'd be thinking it would be between Senegal and DR Congo, but Sudan, still unbeaten in this group. Can they carry it on? There's a huge game in match day 5. Sudan hosting Senegal. If Sudan win that, not only will I be worried about Algeria's AFCON group campaign, you've got to say Sudan are a serious contender. They are buzzing on confidence. And look at what's happening back home. It's awful what's happening in Sudan. They can't even play games in Sudan. Free Sudan. But they're playing good football on the pitch. They've stopped Ghana going to the AFCON. If they get a result at home to Senegal, I mean, DR Congo are going to beat South Sudan. Of course they are. And then Sudan are playing South Sudan in the Sudanese derby in match day 6. Could also be a tasty game. You'd think DR Congo would have enough to go to Mauritania and win, and Senegal should beat Togo at home in match day 6. This is going to be close. We need to see what Sudan do in match day 5. Of course, we're going to look in depth at all these games when they come close to the time and review them every night. But you've got to say, it's a 3-horse race, and it's really hard to call right now. And if you're Senegalese or you're Congolese, it's an annoying group because you've got to worry about each other and Sudan on the horizon as well. I can't call Group B. It's going to be tight. We'll have a much clearer picture after the next match days, but let's see what happens there. Now, if you thought Group B was interesting, what about Group C? It's led by Rwanda in a group with Nigeria and South Africa. I mean, could you imagine if the qualifiers stopped now? You'd have the likes of Rwanda and Sudan going to the World Cup. And that's what you love about the new format. It gives teams that don't usually qualify a massive opportunity to go to their first ever World Cup. Of course, some people say There's too many teams. If you do 48 teams, we'll wait and see. This group's incredibly tight. Not only are Nigeria second bottom, Rwanda, South Africa and Benin, of course they're going to the AFCON, all on 7 points. Lesotho on 5, Nigeria on 3. Nigeria haven't won any of the first 4. They made the AFCON final, lost to the host Cote d'Ivoire, but they haven't won a single game in this group. It's absolutely extraordinary. They couldn't beat Lesotho at home. Nigeria, despite having Osimhen and Lookman, the 2 most previous African players of the year at the CAF Awards, can't get a game. Massive pressure. Nigeria is a huge population, a huge footballing nation. They've got to go to this tournament, but not only have they got to worry about teams around them, they've got this new rivalry with South Africa. You look at what happened in the AFCON where Nigeria beat South Africa on penalties to reach the final. It's going to be tough. You've got to say now Nigeria, with their new coach Eric Shell, who's come from Oran, is going to have to win all 6 games, I think. South Africa are not going to give that position up lightly. They're going to be excited about the upcoming fixtures. They're at home to Lesotho, South Africa, Lesotho. South Africa should win that. But Nigeria, Rwanda, Nigeria haven't got a good record against Rwanda, and if they don't win away there, they're in all sorts of trouble. And even for them, playing Zimbabwe at home in match day 6, not an easy fixture. Zimbabwe have made the AFCON as well. This is a tough old group here. This is very hard to call because Nigeria's shocking form. I think I'd make South Africa the favourites. They've got a 4-point cushion over Nigeria. The games will be good between South Africa and Nigeria, but you just feel right now with South Africa playing Lesotho, that'll give them a boost. And Nigeria got to go to Rwanda and get something. So incredibly tight, incredibly poised in Group C. Group D, you've got a few nations there that haven't made the AFCON. Cameroon, a slender lead on 8. Libya and Cape Verde on 7, although Libya and Cape Verde both failed to make the AFCON. Angola on 6. I mean, there's only 2 points between the top 4 sides there. Mauritius on 4, that's impressive. Eswatini on 0. Now Cameroon play Eswatini and Libya at home, and I think Cameroon will win both those games, and I think that's where you will start to see the cushion really open up for Cameroon. Of course, Angola chasing, they've got to play Libya away, and then they're hosting Cape Verde. I don't know if Angola will beat Cape Verde. Angola have got a lovely record, unbeaten, but a lot of draws. I think Angola would still be my closest competitor to Cameroon in this group. And we saw what Angola did at the last AFCON, making the quarter-final. I think Cameroon have got it in their hands, but I think they're going to have Angola breathing down their neck, and they're going to want Cape Verde to do them a favour. But again, an interesting one. We all know how Cameroon made the World Cup last time. Let's not remind ourselves of that. Could be very interesting indeed. And Group E, for me, with respect, is a waste of time. Because we all know that Morocco have by far and away the best squad in Group E. Not only that, Eritrea have withdrawn, so they're bottom on no points. They're not going to play a game again in these qualifiers, so there's only 5 teams in this group. Again, we don't know how that'll implicate teams coming in second, because if you're coming second in Group E, you're at a disadvantage because you've got 6 less points to play for because you've got 2 less fixtures. I think it says a lot that Morocco's biggest competitor right now is Niger, who got a great result against Ghana on match day 6 of the AFCON qualifiers. They smashed Sudan, didn't they? And of course, Niger's manager is from Morocco, which might add an extra spice to the Niger-Morocco game. But it wouldn't shock me if Niger-Morocco, with Morocco as the away side, as it usually tends to happen now, they'll be playing the game at home. And of course, Morocco at home to Tanzania, Morocco would win that as well. So I think Morocco are basically already qualified, and this is a bit of a waste of time. And it's very hard to come in second because you've got less fixtures to do in this group. But having said that, the games have to be played. I think Morocco could easily win every game in this group. They've already done half the group because there's less games in it. I think these teams, Niger, Tanzania, Zambia and Congo Brazzaville, they're not good enough to go to the World Cup. So I think Morocco are going to breeze Group E and could quite literally get maximum points. So that's how I see Group E going. Let's turn our attention to Group F and the AFCON holders, Cote d'Ivoire on 10, closely followed by Gabon in 9 points. Now, Aubameyang, surely his last chance to go to a World Cup. Berahino's Burundi, though we haven't seen Berahino for a while, on 7. Kenya on 5. Gambia, the big surprise for me, only being on 3 points. Gambia, especially since Uncle Tom Somfate has left, Gambia have fallen off massively. 3 points from 4 games. That's below the standards they've reached recently. Narrowly missed out on the AFCON despite beating Tunisia on the last match day. Gambia, very disappointing here. Now, Ivory Coast go to Burundi and then host Gambia, and I think they'll win both those games. Gabon should beat Seychelles and got a tricky test in Kenya. you think Cote d'Ivoire would make it. And you look at the World Cup last time, those playoffs like Algeria, Cameroon, Morocco, Congo, Ivory Coast didn't even make the playoffs. And I think that was a big reason why they got the big AFCON boost, was because they had to go for the AFCON after being terrible in the World Cup playoffs. So I think Ivory Coast will comfortably be making it out of Group F. You'd expect them to go to Burundi and win. But having said that, Cote d'Ivoire in a bit of poor form. Didn't they lose to Sierra Leone recently? So you never know. But with the quality they have, and you look at who's coming through now, like Amad Diallo and these sorts of players, and Kouasse, I think very difficult to see a Gabon or a Kenya, or particularly Gambia, already 7 points behind, really stop Cote d'Ivoire. And I think Cote d'Ivoire will be coming out of this group comfortably. Now, we look at these groups and you see how comfortable Ivory Coast look, how comfortable Egypt look, how comfortable Morocco look. Why is our group always pain, torture and everything that comes with that? We're on 9 points in first, the same points as second, with the following third, fourth and fifth, all with 2 wins as well. I mean, listen, respect to the Somali brothers and sisters, they're not going to make the World Cup. They know they're not going to make the World Cup. There's 5 teams in this group. Goodness me, they're going to be thinking we've got one hell of a chance. Uganda are 5th. Uganda are 5th. They're only 3 points off the top. It's unbelievable. Let's dissect this. Now, we know these games are happening in Ramadan. So the North African teams could well be, particularly away from home, at a disadvantage. Botswana away, and this is the Botswana that went Egypt away and drew. That's going to be a tough game. A tough old game, particularly if these players are fasting. Really, really difficult encounter. Guinea are going to slap Somalia with respect. They will. Girassi against Somalia. Yes, it could get ugly. Mozambique, Uganda, you'd be hoping for a draw because there's not been any draws in this group. That's why so many teams are on maximum points, because we haven't seen a draw yet. So the situation is clear. I think Algeria losing at home to Guinea was very damaging. We don't know the extent of that damage yet. Botswana away is tricky. Guinea will beat Somalia, so you might as well put Guinea on 9. You might as well, respectfully. So it's going to be tough. And then Botswana, Somalia, maybe, I don't know, could Somalia do something? It's very hard to see that. I think the key fixture here in match day 6 is Uganda, Guinea, where Algeria will be hoping for a draw, and that might rule Uganda and Guinea out. And if Algeria can beat Mozambique at home, and we did win away in Maputo, we did beat Mozambique thanks to Belmadi, it might give us a bit of breathing space. But right now, I mean, you think if you're Botswana or Uganda, you've got an unbelievable opportunity to go to the World Cup. And for the Guineans, they've missed out on the AFCON, can you believe? There's 4 teams here going AFCON, and Guinea's not one of them. They're going to be wanting all out to make the World Cup. They're not going to have an AFCON in December, so they're going to want this even more. And Girassi is firing the goals at Dortmund. This is always us. It's always us. This group is going to have absolute fireworks and drama, so we'll see how that one pans out. But I'm getting nervous already. Now, Group H. Now, we're going to address something here. I spoke to a few people and I read a few comments saying that apparently I dislike Tunisia. That is untrue. Lovely country, love Harissa, lovely people. The octopus couscous is questionable, but their luck is unbelievable. Now, remember the last time they went to the World Cup, and to be honest, they only did quite well. They beat France. So people say it's France B team. They just bottled it against Australia. Good point against Denmark. But how they got there, they drew Mali, and Mali scored an own goal. I mean, so Tunisia didn't score a goal and made it. Now, you've got to accept that. And then when you look at the group they were given, Equatorial Guinea, Namibia, Liberia, you're thinking, okay, lucky. Not only that, because of Nsoue's ban, Equatorial Guinea were deducted 6 points. They took 6 points away from Equatorial Guinea, who would have been 1 point from Tunisia, and it would have been one hell of a game in Malabo when Tunisia had to go there. They've taken 6 points from them. So now, Tunisia's closest competitor is Namibia. This is such a poor group. Tunisia don't even have to be at their best, and they're going to make it. They're playing Liberia away, and they're playing Malawi at home. And I think this Tunisia now, with hopefully by then the new coach and people upstairs behaving themselves, are going to win both those games. But this is not a tough test. Any team in pot 1 here would have walked this, particularly when you think of Equatorial Guinea getting the 6 points deduction. So it's not hate, it's just completely factual. And even the most die-hard Tunisian will admit they've jammed it, because they're getting a group with weak teams and the best competitor got 6 points wiped. We're thinking, oh my God, they got Nsue, the AFCON top scorer. That's going to be one hell of a game. Dubious penalty when Tunisia played Equatorial Guinea, win the 1-0. But they took 6 points. And Sao Tome and Principe is a tourist destination island, so I don't know why they're here. You can't see Namibia and Liberia. Even an average Tunisia, they're not going to get stopped by that. So unless Tunisia completely capitulate, and we don't know because we saw them struggle against Comoros and we saw them struggle against Gambia, you'd think they'd have enough. Let's come to last but by no means least, Group I. And Comoros Comoros are having a great year, aren't they? They've made the AFCON. They're going to be the first game of the AFCON. They're going to be playing Morocco in the opening game in Group A of the AFCON. They're on 9. Ghana, again, massive pressure on the Black Stars to go to the World Cup because another nation that haven't made the AFCON. They've got to make up for it. The only way they can make up for it is by going to the World Cup. And of course, again, it seems weird thinking about it, they made it to the last World Cup as well, like the Tunisians, even though they go out in the group in AFCON and now haven't even qualified for the next edition. Now, Ghana at home to Chad in match day 5. Ghana will win that game. No matter what you think of them, they will win that game. Comoros against Mali, and yes, Mali are in this group in 4th position with 5 points. Mali have never been to the World Cup. Of course, they choked it last time going to Qatar, scoring the own goal. This was a great opportunity for them to really put their foot down and go. They had a good AFCON. They've got to get some points here. They've got some tough games. They've got 2 away games. They've got Comoros away. They've got the Central African Republic away. Ghana go to Madagascar in match day 6. That's not going to be an easy game. Ghana don't have a good record against them. This is wide open. Comoros are home to Chad in match day 6. They'll win that game. It's going to be very close. Comoros and Ghana, any slip-ups, Mali are going to come and jump in. So Comoros, Ghana and Mali all going here. Group I is very hard to predict. It'll be one of Comoros, Ghana or Mali in first, but I couldn't tell you now. 6 games is a lot that can happen in those games. But Ghana, huge pressure. I want to see them get a centre forward. Could they go and get Eddie and Kessia to lead the line? Something's got to change because it can't be are you and are you again. So this group's tight. Again, Algeria and Ghana have got it all to do really. So that's match days 5 and 6 to look forward to. We'll be covering them right here. Stay locked in. Press the sub button. Drop the like. Share the love. Let me know your thoughts on these groups. What game are you looking forward to the most? It's going to be very, very interesting. Who's going to go to the World Cup from Africa? We'll be knowing a much clearer answer after match days 5 and 6. So let me know all your thoughts on the upcoming games. What's the best fixture to watch? And I'll see you on the next one.